What's going on, YouTube family? It's Andrea here at VW Family Farm, and in honor of Thanksgiving that's coming up, I'm gonna share with y'all my hands down favorite roll recipe of all time. This is a family secret recipe, I guess you'd say, in Ben's family. It's not a secret though, and I'm letting it out to all of you, but it was his great grandma's recipe. She was known for them. They're super delicious. When I met Ben and started coming over for Sunday dinner at his extended family's house, it was actually his great grandma's house. A ton of people would pack in there and we'd have a Sunday dinner together every single Sunday. That's where I was introduced to these rolls, and the first time I had them, I thought, those are the best rolls I've ever eaten. They're that good. So this is a tried and true recipe. I have become known in my family now. I started making these rolls a couple years ago, and now it's a thing that I make these for my side of the family every year at Thanksgiving and sometimes again at Christmas. And today, the kids and I have somewhere to go tonight, and I thought, what better thing to take than homemade rolls, and it gives me an opportunity to share it with y'all. So let's get started. This is pretty simple. This video is not gonna be super long because these are so simple to make. I'm gonna show you how to make them, and then I'll put down in the description box, I will put the ingredients, and you can just check back to this video on the how to make them. But it's super easy. We're gonna start with 4.5 teaspoons of yeast. Now, this is a disclaimer. I make these for the holidays. This is not something I make every day because this does have commercial yeast. It has some sugar in it. These are good old-fashioned rolls. These are not fermented or soured or anything like that, but they are super delicious and they're a really good splurge food. And I promise you, if you take these to a holiday gathering, you will wow your guests. They're that good. Okay, so like I said, 4.5 teaspoons yeast, and we're gonna put in 1/4 cup of warm water, and then we're just gonna walk away for a few minutes and let that get good and bubbly, and then we'll begin. So I'm gonna add that hot water now. All right, so we're gonna add 1/4 cup of warm water to our yeast in this bowl, and there's nothing fancy about this. You're just gonna stir it up, and then you're gonna walk away. So I'm gonna say maybe 5 minutes or so, let this yeast get dissolved, and then we'll mix it all up. Okay, y'all, this is super easy. The first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna use the whisk attachment. It really helps at this point if you have a stand mixer. You can do it without it. But the first thing is to cream 3/4 cup of sugar and a cup of the original recipe says Chefway shortening or Crisco, but I use lard. Because we render our own lard here on the homestead. So a cup of, I'm gonna say lard, you use whatever you want. Cream those together. This is so easy, and I'm gonna try to talk loud because I know this mixer's loud. We're gonna just add everything else in at this point. 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 eggs, and I'm gonna turn this down, and I'm gonna add 2 cups of, this is pretty warm water. It says a cup of boiling, a cup of cold, and I think that kind of makes the right temperature to not kill your yeast, but I've always just used warm and it works perfectly. The only key with the water is if you have it too hot, you will kill your yeast, so that's what you don't want too hot. Now we're gonna add our yeast mixture. I'm gonna give that a little blend. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna switch my attachments to my dough hook. That's what that is. If you've never used that, it's a glorious little tool. Comes with all standard model KitchenAids, and it's awesome. I use it for making all kinds of bread. All right, our only other ingredient is gonna be 6 cups of flour that I'm gonna add a couple at a time. I will be using bread flour, but for years I've just used any kind of all-purpose flour. This is just unbleached, unbromated bread flour. I've used whole wheat flour. That works well too. It produces a darker roll, but still works good. Our point here is just to get this mixed up good. And when I see that it's mixing in, I'll add a couple more cups. And finally, the last two. All right, so we got it all mixed up. I've got it here in this bowl. I'm just gonna give it a good stir and make sure it got mixed all the way down to the bottom, which it did. Just get everything stuck on the sides, mixed in there so we don't lose some dough. It's a little moist looking, that's okay, that's a good thing. I'm taking my Azure Market coconut oil, my favorite coconut oil. I'm greasing another bowl really good just so it won't stick to the sides. You need a bigger bowl at this point so it has room to rise. Just gonna dump this off in this bowl. So I dumped this off in this bowl. I'm gonna get what's on the spoon off of it. And you can see it's still got room to rise in this bowl. I'm gonna put this in a place free from draft where it's a little bit warm. I'm not gonna put it somewhere where it's super hot. I'm just gonna tuck it back here on my stove, put a cloth over it, and we will come back in 1 to 1.5 hours. It's gonna double in bulk in that time, and then we'll check back in on it. Okay, so it's been a little while. The kids and I got busy with some other chores. That's the beauty of this recipe. It's not an exact science to where you have to come back an hour and a half later on the dot. It's not like that. It's been a while. I don't know exactly how long. So earlier we didn't have to knead this recipe, but now we're going to just a little bit. I'm gonna sprinkle some flour out. And I've got my island here covered in plastic wrap just to make cleanup a little easier. And then I'm gonna take this dough. See how beautiful that rose? But it's still a little sticky, so we're gonna need a little bit of flour into it. And we are going to make it out into rolls. So before I get started on this, I've got my pans here. We are actually going somewhere, so I'm gonna use these disposable pans. I hardly ever use disposable anything. I just try not to spend the money on disposable things. We just use real dishes and wash them. But when I'm going places for the holidays especially, it does make life a little easier when I don't have to worry about lugging heavy dishes and things like that. It makes these a little easier. So I'm gonna get these greased with some coconut oil. That way when I'm ready to put the rolls in it, they'll be ready. So this is really fancy. I'm just taking some coconut oil and gonna rub in here real good so that the rolls don't stick. Okay, so I'm just going to knead a little bit of flour into this so it won't be quite so sticky. You're going for a little bit, I don't know how to explain it, just a little bit drier than this stickiness that the dough is right now. You'll kind of know it when you feel it, but I don't think that you're going to mess this recipe enough for it to matter that much if you stop too soon or if you go too far or anything like that. This recipe seems pretty forgiving. You can kind of see already that just by kneading the little bit that I did, it's just not near as sticky and gooey as it was. So I'm just gonna knead just for a few minutes, nothing crazy, and put a little more flour in it. And then we're gonna be ready to put these in the pans. Okay, so I think I've kneaded it enough. I've got a couple of, these would be like 13 by 9 pans here. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this, I mean, there's no exact science. I just get a little bit in between my thumb and pointer finger and I just pinch it off. And you can really roll it around and make a really nice ball. If you want, it doesn't matter. I kind of leave mine odd shaped and I just start lining the pan with them. They're gonna rise enough that it's not really gonna matter the shape when you put them in because they're gonna kind of rise again and make a nice just round shape. Now, as you pinch it off, they're gonna be a little sticky around the edges. So this extra flour that you had, if you wanna just put a little bit on them so the edges aren't so sticky, feel free to do that. If you don't, don't. And that's what they look like when you get them made into rolls. You can tell they're fairly small. I fit 20 in each of those pans, and those are not quite 13 by 9 pans. You can make them a little bigger than that if you want, but I think those will rise up nicely. And you're gonna leave those for an hour, hour and a half. And when you get close to the end of the time of the rising, when you're getting ready to bake them, preheat your oven to 400 and we'll be ready to bake these things and move on. All right, so you can see they've risen and filled the pan really nicely. They will just keep rising if you just keep letting them sit there till they will rise all the way up to that pan. They'll just have more and more air in them the more you let them rise, and they're gonna rise a little bit during cooking too. But that's all I'm gonna let them rise today because I've got some more to go. We're gonna turn the oven on to 400. All right, so there they are. If you're concerned that the ones in the middle are not done, you can always kind of pull up the top of one of them and you can see that it's not doughy under there. They're completely done. I undercooked them just slightly because I have to travel with them and they're gonna be wrapped in with a covering on and maybe keep cooking just a little bit in this hot pan. So I didn't want to overcook them and dry them out. All right, so that's it, guys. That's the best rolls in the world according to our family. Give them a try if you're looking for a roll recipe for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, or just any night of the week. They're delicious. You can see they're very easy. Most of the prep work is at the beginning, and then I didn't come back in an exact hour and a half after each step, and you can see they turned out just fine. And also I wanted to mention, this recipe makes wonderful cinnamon rolls. So back at the step where I made them into rolls, you could actually roll that dough out and sprinkle it with cinnamon and sugar, roll it up and slice it off into little cinnamon rolls, and that's delicious too. You'd bake them for about the same amount of time and then you could ice them with a homemade icing. They're delicious. Thanks for watching and I will see y'all later. God bless.
All right, so Andrea and the kids went to a homeschool group meeting. She left me a couple of her rolls here. And she left me a cool little note. Film yourself eating these. So do y'all want to see me eat them? I know how good they are. I've grown up with these things. My great grandma's recipe. Oh, they're so good. And it reminds me of her every time I have one. I love these things. May not be the most healthy thing, but they are da bomb. Delicious. And yes, I am talking with my mouth full. You have to try to make these. Absolutely. They will be the hit of your Thanksgiving or Christmas meal. Everybody will be raving about them, I promise you. The biggest disappointment is she only left me 2. It's better than none though, isn't it? Positive. Positive thinking. Anyway, these things are awesome. Thank y'all for watching, and until next time, God bless.